A single key pressed by a curious little boy changes everything for a struggling street pianist, and turns her world upside down in ways she never imagined. Samantha woke up before the sun. The city streets were still quiet, with only a few early risers hurrying along the sidewalks, coffee cups in hand, and cars humming softly in the distance. She stretched and rubbed her tired eyes, glancing at the small apartment she rented on the third floor of a faded brick building. It was tiny, with peeling paint on the walls and a creaky wooden floor, but it was hers. For Samantha, it was enough, because this apartment gave her the chance to pursue her one true passion: music. Music had always been Samantha's escape. Ever since she was a little girl, she remembered the sound of her mother humming lullabies. While she worked, the piano in the living room that seemed too old and dusty yet magical when touched by loving hands, Samantha had learned to play by ear, memorizing the notes of songs she heard on the radio or at school. Over the years, her love for the piano grew, and with it, her dream of sharing music with the world. But life had not been easy. When he was tight. Her parents had always struggled, and when they passed away, Samantha found herself on her own, trying to survive in a city that was expensive, loud, and sometimes unforgiving. She rolled up her sleeves, tied back her hair, and slung her worn backpack over her shoulder. Inside was a small notebook of music sheets, a water bottle, a sandwich she had packed herself, and her most treasured possession, a collapsible keyboard. It was heavy to carry, but Samantha loved it. It was her voice, her companion in the city. Streets, where people often rushed by without a second glance. Yet she played anyway because she believed someone would hear, someone would feel the music as she did. That morning, the streets were slowly waking. Samantha found her usual spot near a busy corner where pedestrians walked from the subway station to their offices. The air was crisp, with the faint smell of fresh bread from a nearby bakery mixing with the city's usual scent of asphalt and exhaust. She set up her keyboard carefully, adjusting the stand and connecting the small amplifier she had saved for months to buy. She tested the first few notes, letting the sound fill the air, and smiled as a passerby paused. Intrigued by the music floating over the concrete and noise, Samantha played for hours, her fingers dancing over the keys, her mind lost in the melody. She played soft, gentle tunes in the morning, hoping to bring calm to the hurried people around her, and gradually shifted to lively, energetic songs as the city became busier. Occasionally she received a coin or two dropped into her small open case, and she would smile at the gesture, grateful for the acknowledgement. Most of the people ignored her, which was normal. After all, the city moved fast, and people rarely had time to stop. But Samantha didn't mind. The music itself was enough reward for her heart. By mid-morning, the street began to fill with more people. Businessmen in suits, students with backpacks, delivery workers pushing carts, and tourists with cameras all passed by. Among the crowd that day was a man who stood out, though Samantha didn't notice him immediately. He had an air of confidence, a sharp suit, and an aura that suggested he didn't belong to the ordinary bustle of the city streets. Beside him was a small boy, maybe 4 or 5 years old, holding his father's hand and looking around with wide, curious eyes. The man, Ethan, occasionally checked his watch, tapping impatiently. But he also seemed to notice the music drifting through the air. Max, the little boy, tugged at his father's hand. "Daddy, can we stop? That music is nice," he said softly, his voice full of wonder. Ethan glanced down at him, a small smile tugging at his lips. "All right, let's see what's happening here," he said, letting Max pull him closer. To Samantha's setup, Samantha, immersed in her playing, didn't notice them at first. Her eyes were closed, her mind completely in the music. She was playing a gentle, flowing melody, imagining the notes painting colors in the air, telling a story without words. When she finally opened her eyes, she noticed the little boy standing, nervously near the edge of her space. She smiled gently at him, nodding, and motioned for him to come closer. Max's eyes lit up, but he hesitated. "Can I press a key?" he asked softly. Samantha nodded. "Of course, sweetheart. Just one key," she said warmly. Max reached out with a tiny hand and pressed a note. The sound was simple, almost clumsy, but it made him giggle with delight. Samantha laughed softly, and her laughter blended with the music, making the street feel lighter. Warmer. Ethan watched silently, fascinated. He had seen many musicians before, in concert halls, on stages, in fancy venues, but never someone who could stop in the middle of a busy street, smile at a little boy, and make the moment feel magical. There was something rare about Samantha, a combination of talent, kindness, and an ease with people that drew his attention. Max pressed another key, and Samantha turned it into a playful melody, encouraging him, teaching him without words how to feel the music. Passers-by started to slow down. Some smiled, some stopped to watch, and a few even took out their phones to capture the moment. Yet Samantha remained focused on Max, making sure he felt comfortable, making sure the music was fun, not intimidating. She had a way of bringing people into her world without demanding anything from them. It was natural, effortless, and Ethan could feel it from where he stood. After a few minutes, Max ran back to his father, beaming. "Daddy, she's amazing. Can we come back tomorrow?" Ethan smiled, brushing a hand through his hair, feeling an unusual tug of interest. "We'll see, Max. Maybe we will," he replied. He looked back at Samantha and gave a small nod of acknowledgement, silently thanking her for this unexpected moment of joy. Samantha returned to her music, but something had changed. For the first time in a long while, she felt seen, not just for her talent, but for the way she could connect with people through music. She didn't know who the man or the boy were, and she didn't care. The moment itself was enough to lift her spirits, to remind her why she played every day, despite the hardships. As the morning passed into afternoon, Samantha packed up her keyboard, exhausted but happy. Coins and small bills clinked in her case more than usual, and she smiled at the little gestures of appreciation. She thought about the boys' laughter, about how music could make someone's day brighter, even for a few minutes. It was moments like these that kept her going, that reminded her dreams were worth chasing. Even if life seemed difficult and unfair, Ethan and Max disappeared into the crowd, but their brief encounters stayed with Samantha. She couldn't shake the feeling that something unusual had happened, that a small key press had somehow left a bigger mark than she realized. Music, she thought, could change the world in small ways, sometimes in ways you couldn't even imagine. Samantha walked back to her apartment as the sun climbed higher in the sky. The city was now alive, full of noise, traffic, and chatter, but she carried the morning's warmth in her heart. She set her keyboard down in the corner, sat for a moment, and let her fingers hover over the keys. She played a soft, lingering note, imagining Max's laughter blending with her music. The note hung in the air, echoing the connection, the magic of the encounter. Little did Samantha know. The small moment on that street corner, the single key pressed by a little boy, was the beginning of something that would change her life forever. She felt hopeful. But she had no idea how much her world was about to turn upside down, and somewhere across the city, Ethan couldn't stop thinking about the street pianist who had let his son press one key. Her warmth, her talent, her way of making the world lighter. It stayed in his mind all day. He didn't know it yet, but their paths were destined to cross again, and when they did, Samantha's life would never be the same. This version is written in simple English, keeps the story interesting with descriptions, emotions, and character development, and is ready for expansion into the next part. After the morning on the street corner, Samantha couldn't stop thinking about the little boy and his father. Max's laughter, the way he had pressed the piano key so carefully, and the smile on Ethan's face as he watched, it all stayed in her mind. She shook her head as she set up her keyboard the next morning. "Why do I feel like that was more than just a random encounter?" she muttered to herself. She didn't know why it lingered in her thoughts, but there was something different about it, something that made her feel lighter, almost like hope had walked by her side for a few moments. Samantha returned to her usual routine, playing on the street, her fingers gliding over the keys. The coins in her case jingled as people dropped them in, and she smiled at the familiar faces she had come to know over the months. There was Mr. Patel, the man who ran the small corner grocery, who always gave her an encouraging nod. Also Anna, a young woman who worked in the nearby coffee shop, who often paused to listen and sometimes brought a pastry or coffee as a gesture of kindness. Life was small, predictable, and hard, but it had its quiet moments of joy. But that day, something felt different. She noticed more people pausing to watch her play. The usual hurried crowd seemed slightly slower, lingering to listen, as though her music had an invisible magnet pulling them in. Samantha didn't question it. She just kept playing, letting her fingers tell stories she could not put into words. She felt a mix of excitement and nervousness, strange feelings she had not experienced in years. Meanwhile, Ethan couldn't stop thinking about Samantha. He found himself wandering near the same streets, sometimes intentionally, sometimes by accident, hoping to catch a glimpse of her. Max, of course, was eager. "Daddy, can we go see her again?" he asked one morning, tugging at Ethan's hand as they walked through the city. Ethan smiled at his son's excitement. "We'll see, Max. Maybe today we'll find her." He said Ethan's interest wasn't just curiosity. There was something in Samantha that felt genuine, rare and unpretentious. In his world of expensive suits, private meetings, and endless business calls, it was unusual to find someone so simple, yet so captivating. He admired how she treated Max, encouraging him, laughing with him, and playing music in a way that was patient and joyful. It reminded him of the kind of life he wanted for his son, a life where simple pleasures mattered. Where happiness wasn't measured by wealth or status. Days passed, and their paths began to cross more often. Sometimes Ethan and Max would watch Samantha from a distance, enjoying the music in silence. Other times Max would run ahead, greeting her with a wave and a shy smile. Samantha would smile back, her heart warming at the innocence and excitement of the little boy. She noticed Ethan, too, standing tall in his suit, always calm, observing quietly. She didn't know his name, but she sensed he was someone important, someone different from the usual passers-by. One day, Samantha was packing up her keyboard. Max ran up to her, his little hands clutching a small toy car. "I dropped this." "Near your piano yesterday? Can you keep it safe?" he asked eagerly. Samantha took the toy carefully, handing it back with a gentle smile. "Of course, Max. I'll keep it safe for you," she said. Max's face lit up, and he ran back to his father, excitedly recounting the exchange. Ethan watched the scene with quiet admiration. He approached Samantha cautiously, not wanting to intrude. "You have a special way with him," he said, his voice polite but friendly. Samantha looked up, slightly startled. She wasn't used to adults approaching her with conversation. Most people just walked by or gave a small nod. "Thank you," she said softly. "He's very sweet. It's easy to teach him a little about music. He's curious and brave." Ethan nodded, intrigued. "I'm Ethan," he said, extending his hand, "and this little troublemaker is Max." Samantha shook his hand, noticing the firmness and confidence in it. "Samantha," she replied. She felt a strange flutter of nervousness. Something about the way Ethan looked at her, the curiosity and genuine interest, made her heart beat a little faster. She wasn't used to attention from people like him, people from worlds far removed from the streets she knew. Ethan hesitated for a moment before speaking again. "Would you consider performing at a charity event? I think your music deserves to be heard by more people, and, well, I think you'd be amazing there." Samantha blinked, caught off guard. She had never imagined performing in a fancy venue, in front of people who wore suits and dresses, who sipped champagne and clapped politely. The thought both excited and terrified her. I don't know," she said honestly. "I've only played on the streets. I'm not used to fancy places or big crowds." Ethan smiled gently. "You'd be perfect, Samantha. Your music speaks for itself, and I believe people will feel it just like Max did." Samantha thought about it. The idea scared her, but it also sparked something deep inside, a chance to step into a world she had only dreamed of. After a long pause, she nodded. "All right, I'll do it," she said, her voice quiet but determined. Ethan's smile widened. "You won't regret it, I promise," he said. Max jumped up excitedly, clapping his hands. "Yay, you'll play for everyone. That's awesome," he exclaimed. Samantha laughed, feeling a warmth in her heart that she hadn't felt in a long time, As the days went by, Samantha began preparing for the charity event. She practiced tirelessly, experimenting with new melodies and perfecting old ones. Streets became her stage, but now she imagined a larger audience. Imagining how her music would fill a grand hall instead of a busy corner. She felt nervous, but the memory of Max's laughter and Ethan's encouraging words gave her courage. Ethan, meanwhile, ensured that everything was arranged for her performance. He hired a small team to help with the event, making sure that Samantha would feel comfortable and supported. He didn't want her to feel overwhelmed or out of place. More than that, he found himself thinking about her constantly, wondering how a simple street pianist could have such a profound effect on him and his son. When the day of the charity event approached, Samantha's nerves were almost unbearable. She walked through the streets she knew so well, her keyboard strapped on her back, imagining how different the evening would be. Wondered if she could perform for people who expected perfection, people who might not understand the beauty in her music. Yet she also felt a quiet determination. This was her chance to show the world what she could do. To step beyond the corners and sidewalks and into something bigger. Ethan and Max arrived early at the venue. A beautiful hall filled with warm lights and polished floors. Max was bouncing with excitement, holding his father's hand tightly. "I hope she's as amazing as she is on the street," he whispered to Ethan. Ethan smiled. "She'll be even better," he said. "You'll see." Backstage, Samantha took a deep breath, adjusting her sheet music and testing the keyboard. The room was intimidating, full of strangers and soft murmurs of conversation. Her hands trembled slightly, but she closed her eyes and imagined the street corner, the sun shining, the coins clinking, Max's laughter. That simple memory grounded her. She realized that no matter how fancy the venue, the music itself was her true power, her voice, and her connection to others. When it was her turn to perform, Samantha stepped onto the stage, greeted by polite applause. She sat at the keyboard, took another deep breath, and let her fingers flow across the keys. The first notes were soft, gentle, almost hesitant, but soon the music grew bolder, more confident. The audience listened, captivated by the beauty and emotion she poured into every note. It was as though the music spoke directly to them, telling a story of struggle, hope, and joy. Ethan watched from the front row, Max clinging to his side, eyes wide with wonder. He was amazed at how Samantha transformed the hall with her music, just as she had transformed the street corner weeks ago. Every note, every pause, every soft laugh in her melodies made the room feel alive, warm and full of magic. By the time she finished, the audience erupted into applause, some standing to show their appreciation. Samantha felt tears prick her eyes. She had done it. She had stepped out of her world and into another, and the music had carried her through. She glanced at Ethan and Max, their smiles encouraging, proud, and full of love, and felt a warmth she had never known. That evening, as Samantha walked back to her apartment, her heart was racing with excitement. She realized that her life had begun to change in ways she could not yet understand. The street corner, the coins, the small moments of connection, they had all led to this. And somewhere deep inside, she knew that Ethan and Max were going to play a role in her life that would shape her future in ways she could never have imagined. This version keeps simple English, builds the connection between Samantha, Ethan, and Max, and is written to stay interesting, emotional, and engaging, around 1,500 words. The day of the charity event had finally arrived, and Samantha felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness that she had never experienced before. She woke up early, her heart pounding in her chest. Her small apartment, usually so quiet in the morning, seemed filled with a kind of energy she could almost touch. She carefully packed her keyboard, making sure every chord, every sheet of music was perfectly in place. Today wasn't just another street performance. This was a chance to show the world her music, a chance she had never imagined for herself. As she walked through the busy streets, Samantha thought about how far she had come. Just a few weeks ago, she had been playing for coins on the street, feeling unnoticed and invisible. Now she was about to perform in front of a room full of people who had never heard her music, people with influence, status, and power. It was thrilling, but also terrifying. Can I really do this? She whispered to herself. Can they really feel what I feel through my music? Ethan and Max were already at the venue, a grand hall that shimmered with polished wood floors. Sparkling lights and the soft hum of conversation from well-dressed guests. Max bounced on his toes, barely able to contain his excitement. "Daddy, she's going to be amazing. I just know it," he said. Ethan chuckled, putting a hand on his son's shoulder. "I agree, Max. She has a gift. You'll see tonight just how special she is." Backstage, Samantha took deep breaths, trying to calm her nerves. She watched other performers warming up, some practicing delicate notes on grand pianos, others talking with organizers in hushed tones. The environment was intimidating, full of people who seemed to belong in this world, while she felt like a small fish suddenly placed in a vast ocean. She glanced at her keyboard, her old companion, and a wave of reassurance washed over her. No matter where she was, her music was hers, and it could speak louder than words. When it was time, Samantha was guided to the stage. The lights brightened, and she could feel the eyes of the audience settling on her. The room fell silent, and the weight of the moment pressed on her shoulders. She sat at the keyboard, her fingers hovering above the keys. Her heart raced, but she closed her eyes and thought of the street corner, of Max pressing that one small key of the coins clinking in her case, and of Ethan's encouraging nod. That memory grounded her. The first notes she played were soft, gentle, almost like a whisper. They flowed smoothly, filling the room with warmth. The audience leaned in, captivated by the emotion in her music. Samantha began to feel more confident. As she played, her fingers dancing across the keys with grace and precision, she imagined the stories she wanted to tell, the struggles, the hopes, the dreams that had carried her through long days of hardship. The hall was no longer intimidating, it became a canvas for her melodies. Max clapped quietly at his father's side, his wide eyes sparkling with amazement. Ethan watched intently, his expression a mixture of pride and admiration. He had seen many performances in his life, but there was something rare and pure about Samantha's music. It was honest, raw, and full of life. It didn't need fancy effects or dramatic theatrics. It was her in every note, and it was breathtaking. As Samantha continued playing, the audience became more engaged. People who had arrived in casual conversation grew silent, drawn into the music. Some closed their eyes, letting the melody wash over them, while others leaned forward, captivated by the subtle emotion in every note. It was as if the music created a connection between everyone in the room, a shared experience that transcended wealth, status, and background. Samantha's hands moved with growing confidence, her nervousness replaced by a sense of purpose. Each note she played told a story. Each chord resonated with the audience. She realized that this was what she had always wanted, not just to be noticed, but to make people feel, to touch their hearts with her music. And in that moment, she understood that her dream of reaching beyond the streets was possible. After the final note, there was a moment of silence. The audience seemed suspended, caught in the last lingering sound of her music. Then slowly applause began, growing louder and louder until the room erupted in cheers. Some people stood, clapping with enthusiasm, moved by the beauty and sincerity of her performance. Samantha felt tears prick her eyes, a mixture of relief, pride, and pure happiness. She had done it. She had shared her gift, and it had been heard. Ethan stepped forward, clapping along with Max, who was jumping up and down in excitement. "That was incredible," Ethan said quietly, his eyes meeting Samantha's across the room. "You were amazing," Samantha smiled, her heart swelling with gratitude. "Thank you. I just play what I feel," she replied softly. Max ran up to her, hugging her leg. "See, Daddy? Told you she's amazing," exclaimed. Samantha laughed, ruffling his hair gently, feeling a warmth she had never experienced before in the days that followed. The performance began to ripple beyond the walls of the hall. Someone had recorded a video of Samantha playing, and it was shared on social media. Within hours, the video went viral. Comments poured in from people around the city and beyond, praising her talent, her emotion, and her story. Offers for performances, interviews, and invitations to prestigious events began to arrive. Samantha felt overwhelmed, unsure how to handle the sudden attention. The world she had known, the quiet streets, the simple joys, the little coins in her case, was changing rapidly. Despite the chaos, Samantha remained grounded by her connection to Ethan and Max. Ethan continued to support her, helping her navigate the new attention without losing herself. Max became her little anchor, reminding her of the joy of music and the simple pleasures that had always guided her. Together, they shared laughter, stories, and moments of calm amidst the whirlwind of change. But with the new opportunities came unexpected pressures. Samantha began to feel the weight of expectation. People wanted perfection, and some critics questioned her ability to perform on bigger stages. She felt pressure to meet every demand, to prove herself over and over. There were moments when she wondered if she could handle it, if she could remain true to herself while stepping into this unfamiliar world. Yet every time she sat at the keyboard, whether on stage, in a studio, or even back on the streets for a small audience, the music reminded her why she started. It reminded her of Max pressing that first key, of the joy she had seen in his eyes, and the warmth of Ethan's supportive presence. It reminded her that talent and kindness could change lives in ways she had never imagined. Samantha's life was turning upside down, and she could feel it in every part of her day. The streets were no longer just a place to play for spare change. They had become the starting point of a journey she couldn't have planned. Opportunities she had never dreamed of were now within reach, and the world was beginning to notice her in ways that made her both proud and nervous. Yet through all the excitement, Samantha never lost sight of herself. She practiced diligently, stayed connected to her roots, and remembered the joy of music for its own sake. She realized that while fame and attention could be overwhelming, the true power of her music lay in its ability to touch hearts, to bring people together, and to make life a little brighter, even for a few moments. The experience of performing in front of a larger audience, seeing the impact of her music on people who had never known her before, gave Samantha a sense of confidence she had never felt on the street corner. She understood that her talent could open doors, but it was her heart and her ability to connect with others that made her truly special. By the end of the week, Samantha had received more invitations and offers than she could count. Interviews, studio sessions, and private performances began to fill her schedule. She was being recognized not only for her skill, but for her warmth, her personality, and the genuine connection she created with her audience. She was stepping into a world she had only dreamed of, and it was exhilarating and overwhelming all at once. But through it all, Samantha remembered the little moments that had brought her here, the coins in her case, the streets she had walked every day, the laughter of a small boy pressing one key, and the quiet support of a man who had believed in her from the very beginning. Those moments grounded her, reminding her that no matter how high she rose, she could stay true to herself and her music. And somewhere in the background, Ethan watched, proud and amazed at how Samantha had handled the sudden change. Max clung to his father, excitedly recounting every detail of her performance. Ethan smiled, realizing that Samantha's music had not only transformed her life, but it also brought new joy and wonder into his son's world. He knew that their paths had crossed for a reason, and that this was just the beginning of something extraordinary. Samantha's life had begun to change in ways she could not yet fully understand. The small street corner where she had played for coins was no longer just a memory. It was the foundation of a journey that was taking her into a world of opportunity, excitement, and possibility. Her music had opened doors, and her heart had created connections that could never be broken. As she lay in bed that night, exhausted but happy, Samantha thought about the future. She didn't know exactly what it would hold, but she felt ready. She had faced her fears, shared her gift, and touched the lives of people she had. After her performance at the charity event, Samantha's life began to feel like a whirlwind. Opportunities she had never dreamed of were appearing from every direction. Invitations to perform in luxurious halls, interviews on local television, and offers to play at private events began to flood in. Samantha couldn't believe that her music, which had once filled quiet street corners, was now reaching people she had never imagined. But soon, the excitement mixed with pressure. Samantha realized that fame Even a small kind of fame was not as simple as she had imagined. People expected perfection. Every note, every expression, every small mistake was noticed and commented on. Social media, which had helped her rise so quickly, also became a source of anxiety. Some viewers criticized her performance, saying she wasn't refined enough for professional stages. Others compared her to famous pianists she had never heard of. Samantha felt the weight of judgment pressing on her shoulders, a feeling she had never experienced when she played on the streets. Her apartment, once a sanctuary, now felt small and crowded with her worries. Samantha would practice late into the night, trying to meet the expectations of this new world, often forgetting to eat or rest. Yet, despite the pressure, there were moments that reminded her why she loved music. A letter from a young fan arrived, thanking her for sharing her talent and inspiring them to keep practicing their own music. Max's laughter and playful energy also reminded her of the joy music could bring. These little moments grounded her and gave her courage to keep moving forward. Ethan noticed the strain on Samantha. He had admired her talent and determination from the first day he met her, and he didn't want to see her overwhelmed by the sudden attention. One afternoon, he visited her apartment to check on her. Samantha was hunched over her keyboard, fingers moving quickly across the keys, her face tense. When she saw him, she smiled, but it was a tired smile. It's not the bright one he remembered from the street. "You're pushing yourself too hard," Ethan said gently. "You don't have to do everything at once." Samantha sighed, pausing her. "Practice, I know, but I feel like I can't stop. Everyone expects so much now, and I don't want to disappoint them or myself." Ethan sat beside her. "You're already amazing, Samantha. People love your music because it comes from you, not because it's perfect. Don't lose that in trying to meet other people's expectations." Samantha nodded, realizing he was right.
Ow.
She had been so focused on success and approval that she almost forgot why she played music in the first place. Despite Ethan's advice, Samantha faced new challenges every day. Not everyone supported her rise to recognition. Other musicians, jealous of her sudden attention, made snide remarks or questioned her talent. Some event organizers demanded she change her style to fit their audience, and agents tried to pressure her into signing contracts she didn't fully understand. Samantha felt torn. She wanted to succeed, to take advantage of these new opportunities. But she didn't want to compromise her music or herself. Max became her constant source of comfort during this stressful time. Every time she felt overwhelmed, she would think of his excitement, his laughter, and the way he had pressed that first key on her street piano. She realized that music was not about fame or recognition. It was about connection, joy, and expression. No matter how much the world pushed her, she could always return to that simple truth. One day, Samantha received an invitation to perform at a prestigious music festival. The event promised exposure to important people in the music industry, but it also required her to leave the city for several weeks. She felt excited at first, imagining the possibilities, but soon, anxiety crept in. She worried about leaving her routines behind, about traveling to unfamiliar places, and about performing for audiences that expected perfection. Ethan noticed her hesitation. "It's okay to be nervous," he said. "You don't have to decide everything today. Take your time. Think about what you want, not just what everyone else wants for you." Samantha appreciated his advice. She realized that in all the chaos, she had been thinking too much about others' expectations and not enough about her own desires. After careful thought, Samantha decided to accept the festival invitation, but she made a personal rule. She would not let anyone tell her how to play her music. She would remain true to herself and her style, the way she had always done on the street. It was a small decision, but it gave her a sense of control and independence in a world that suddenly felt overwhelming. As the festival approached, Samantha practiced more deliberately, focusing not on perfection, but on expression. She experimented with melodies, finding ways to make her music her own while still appealing to a larger audience. She realized that the challenges she faced were not just obstacles, they were opportunities to grow, to understand herself, and to discover the full power of her talent. The day of the festival arrived, and Samantha felt a mixture of fear and excitement. The venue was massive, with lights that gleamed like stars and a crowd that seemed endless. Backstage, she could hear the hum of conversation, the shuffling of performers, and the occasional nervous laugh. She sat at her keyboard, closing her eyes, and took a deep breath. She imagined the street corner again, Max pressing that first key and Ethan's approving smile. That memory calmed her. No matter how big the stage, her music remained hers. When she began to play, the audience was captivated. Her fingers moved across the keys with confidence and emotion, each note telling a story of struggle, hope, and perseverance. People leaned forward in their seats, moved by the authenticity of her performance. Samantha felt a sense of joy she had not felt in weeks. She realized that even though the world had changed rapidly around her, she could still find peace and happiness through her music. After the performance, the applause was overwhelming. People cheered, clapped, and even gave standing ovations. Samantha felt a rush of gratitude and relief. She had faced her fears and remained true to herself. She looked out into the crowd and saw Ethan smiling proudly, Max jumping with excitement, and a few new faces who were clearly inspired by her music. But Samantha also knew that this was just the beginning. The opportunities would continue, and so would the pressures. She would need to find a balance between success and authenticity, between public attention and personal fulfillment. She understood that she could not please everyone, and she did not have to. What mattered most was staying true to herself, to her music, and to the joy that it brought. Over the next few weeks, Samantha continued to navigate her new life. She accepted invitations that felt meaningful, politely declined those that didn't align with her values, and always made time for Max, Ethan, and the simple pleasures that had grounded her from the start. She discovered that she could enjoy the excitement of recognition without losing her sense of self, and that she could grow as an artist while still holding on to the heart that had drawn people to her music in the first place. Samantha also realized that challenges were part of the journey. Jealousy, criticism, and pressure were inevitable, but they could be managed with patience, self-awareness, and support from those she trusted. Ethan became a mentor and friend, guiding her through tricky decisions and offering encouragement when she doubted herself. Max reminded her of the pure joy that had first inspired her to play music, and the street corner where it all began remained in her heart as a symbol of humility and hope. By the end of this period, Samantha had grown stronger, more confident, and more grounded. She had faced difficult choices and learned to navigate a complex world without losing her values. She understood that life would continue to present challenges, but she also knew that she had the inner strength, the talent, and the support to meet them through it all. Samantha never forgot the small moments that had started at all the coins in her case, the streets she had walked every day, the laughter of Max pressing that one key, and the quiet encouragement of Ethan. Those moments had shaped her, guided her, and reminded her of who she truly was. And she knew that as her world continued to change, those small truths would remain her foundation. Samantha's journey in this phase of her life taught her a valuable lesson. Success was not just about opportunity or talent. It was about staying true to yourself, embracing challenges, and finding joy in every step of the journey. She realized that life could be complicated, confusing, and overwhelming, but it could also be beautiful, exciting, and full of wonder if she approached it with courage, kindness, and honesty. And so, Samantha prepared for the next chapter of her life, aware that new opportunities, challenges, and adventures were waiting for her. She was ready to face them, confident in her abilities and in the support of those who cared about her. The world was changing, and she was changing with it, but she would always carry her music, her values, and her heart with her, no matter where life took her next. This version keeps simple. Clear English emphasizes Samantha's challenges, emotional growth, and decisions, and is written to stay interesting and relatable. Around 1,500 words. NG conclusion. After months of whirlwind experiences, Samantha began to feel that her life was finally settling into a rhythm. The chaos of sudden fame, unexpected opportunities, and constant public attention had calmed, and she had learned to navigate her new world with confidence. She had discovered a balance between pursuing her music, honoring her own values, and enjoying the simple pleasures that had always been at the heart of her life. Her days were busy, but fulfilling. Some mornings, she still walked to her favorite street corner, setting up her keyboard and playing for the familiar passers-by. Children would stop to listen, small coins would clink into her open case, and she would smile, remembering that the joy of music didn't need a grand stage. It could be found anywhere in the smallest interactions. These moments reminded her of her roots and kept her grounded, no matter how far her career took her. At the same time, Samantha performed at larger venues, where the audience expected a polished show. She had learned to enjoy these moments without losing herself. Every note she played carried the same heart and honesty that had always defined her music. Her melodies reached people in ways she had never imagined, creating moments of connection, emotion, and inspiration. She realized that whether it was a small street corner or a grand concert hall, her music had the power to touch lives. Ethan had become an important presence in her life, not just a mentor or supporter, but a friend who cared deeply about her well-being. He continued to guide her through the complexities of public attention, helping her make decisions about performances, interviews, and opportunities without pressuring her to change who she was. Max remained a constant source of light and joy, his enthusiasm for music contagious, reminding Samantha of the simple happiness that had started her journey. One afternoon, Samantha received an invitation to perform at an international music festival. The opportunity thrilled her, but it also reminded her of the challenges she had faced when first stepping out of her comfort zone. She felt the familiar nervous excitement, the kind that had accompanied her first street performance and her first charity event. She took a deep breath and accepted, knowing that this was another step in her journey, another chance to share her music with the world. As the festival approached, Samantha continued to practice, exploring new compositions and refining her style. She experimented with melodies that expressed her experiences, her growth, and her dreams. She discovered that her music had evolved, just as she had evolved. She was no longer the street pianist who hesitated before an audience. She had become a confident artist who understood her voice and how to share it authentically. The day of the festival arrived, and Samantha stepped onto a massive stage, her keyboard shining under the bright lights. The crowd was enormous, stretching as far as she could see, filled with people from around the world. Despite the size of the audience, she felt calm. She closed her eyes and remembered the streets, Max's laughter, Ethan's encouraging smile, and the countless small moments that had guided her along the way. Those memories gave her courage and focus. Her performance was breathtaking. Each note she played carried emotion, stories, and heart. The audience leaned in, captivated by the melodies, and the room seemed to pause with every chord. Samantha felt an extraordinary connection with the listeners, realizing that music could bridge gaps between strangers, create understanding, and bring joy. She played with a freedom and authenticity that reflected her journey, and the audience responded with admiration and warmth. After her performance, people from around the world approached Samantha to compliment her, share their stories, and express how her music had touched them. She felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. The challenges, pressures, and uncertainties had been worth it because her music was making a difference. She realized that success wasn't just about fame or recognition, it was about impact, connection, and the ability to inspire others. Despite the recognition, Samantha never forgot the people who had supported her from the beginning. She made time to visit her favorite street corner, to teach children the basics of music, and to encourage young talents who reminded her of herself. She wanted to give back, to help others find the joy in music that had saved her life in so many ways. She understood that her journey was not just about her own success, it was about sharing her gift and inspiring others. Ethan watched Samantha's growth with pride. He had been there when she was unsure of herself, guiding her gently and offering support without judgment. He saw how she had matured into an artist who could navigate the world without losing her heart. Max remained her cheerful companion, sometimes joining her on stage for small performances, bringing laughter and warmth to every moment. The bond between Samantha, Ethan, and Max had deepened, forming a unique and supportive family built on trust, care, and shared love of music. As weeks turned into months, Samantha continued to perform in both large and small venues. She had learned to manage the pressures of attention while maintaining her authenticity. She had discovered the importance of balance, knowing when to say yes to opportunities and when to protect her personal space. The challenges that had once felt overwhelming now felt like part of her growth, shaping her into a confident, capable, and grounded artist. Samantha's journey had also changed the way she viewed herself. She had gained confidence not only in her talent but in her ability to make decisions, to navigate difficult situations, and to maintain her integrity in a world that often tried to change her. She realized that life would always present challenges, but with patience, self-awareness, and courage, she could meet them while remaining true to herself. Through it all, Samantha never lost the joy and simplicity that had first inspired her to play music. She still found pleasure in small moments, the laughter of children, the clinking of coins in her case, the warmth of sunlight on her face, the quiet satisfaction of creating music that felt true to her heart. These moments reminded her that life was not just about achievements or recognition, but about finding happiness and meaning in every day. Samantha's success also inspired others. Young musicians who saw her story realized that it was possible to rise from humble beginnings and achieve recognition without compromising who they were. She became a symbol of hope, authenticity, and resilience, showing that talent and kindness could change lives and touch hearts in ways that went beyond fame or fortune. One evening, after a performance at a mid-sized venue, Samantha walked back to her apartment. The city lights glimmered around her, reflecting in puddles from a recent rain. She felt content, carrying her keyboard through familiar streets. She smiled at the memories of her first street performances, remembering the coins, the laughter, and the moments of connection that had set her on this path. The world had indeed turned upside down for her, but in the best possible way. Back in her apartment, Samantha sat at her keyboard, playing a soft, gentle melody. She thought about the journey, the struggles, the triumphs, the moments of doubt, and the moments of joy. She realized that her life had changed, not just because of the opportunities she had received, but because of the growth, courage, and resilience she had discovered within herself. She was no longer just a street pianist. She was an artist with a voice, a story, and a heart that could inspire others. Ethan visited her that evening, bringing Max along. The three of them laughed, shared stories, and even played music together. Max pressed a few keys on the keyboard, giggling as Samantha incorporated them into a small, playful melody. Ethan watched with admiration, feeling grateful for the unexpected ways their lives had intertwined. What had started as a simple street encounter had grown into a meaningful bond filled with trust, support, and shared joy. Samantha knew that life would continue to bring challenges and opportunities. There would be difficult decisions, pressures, and moments of uncertainty. But she also knew that she had the strength, wisdom, and support to navigate them. She had learned that true success was not about avoiding challenges but facing them with courage, remaining authentic, and finding joy in the journey. Her story became a reminder to herself, others, that small moments could change lives in unexpected ways. The single key pressed by Max on the street corner had started a chain of events that transformed her world, showing her the power of kindness, connection, and passion. She realized that while the path might be unpredictable, it was also full of wonder, excitement, and opportunity. Samantha continued to play, teach, and inspire. She traveled to new cities, performed on larger stages, and met people who valued her music and her heart. Yet she always returned to the places and people that grounded her, the streets where she had begun. Max's laughter, Ethan's guidance, and the quiet moments that reminded her why she played in the first place. In the end, Samantha found a new harmony in her life. She had achieved recognition and success, but she had also maintained her authenticity, joy, and connection to the world around her. Her music continued to touch hearts. Her story continued to inspire, and her life, once simple and struggling, had grown into something extraordinary, filled with hope, love, and possibility.